My name is Patrick Moran. I served with the Grand Simcoe Foresters here in Owen Sound. I was deployed to Afghanistan in 2010 in I think it was the beginning of May, and I served with India Company of 2 RCR, 2nd Battalion, Royal Canadian Regiment, and I served in the Provincial Reconstruction Team for Kandahar, and then Canada's role with that ended at the beginning of that summer, so we switched to the battle group and moved down into Panjwai district, and the Provincial Reconstruction Team was based in Kandahar City, and I was there until very end of November. Came home around the beginning of December of that year. With the reconstruction team, we were force protection, they call it. So that team consisted a lot of like police, government agencies. They were trying to get the province back on its feet, so to speak. Like we provided infantry protection for these groups. We would go out to several times. There's a big prison in Kandahar City. I forget what it's called, but we went there several times, and we would take corrections officers there from Canadian corrections officers, and they would do inspections of the place. It was like mentoring the Afghan guards, things like that. We would do that with police as well. Like there was OPP, RCMP, even Saskatoon, I think it was there as well for police, and they would be mentoring the Afghan police. We went to different police stations for that. Just things like that. There's other agencies, even government agencies. I think it was the Department of Foreign Affairs, things like that. We took, like we were mechanized infantry, so we were in labs, and anywhere that they needed to go, we were their protection. Like we had 4 platoons for this. That was mainly day-to-day stuff. We would go out during the day and do that, and then we had also every now and then we would do night patrols in the city to just presence patrols to let them know we're there. And we would base out of a police compound and go out and about in the town. That was majority of reconstruction team. Our presence with that. When we switched to the battle group, we moved into Panjwai district, and we set up at Forward Operating Base Massamgar. It's a base built into a mountain, basically, and we became the 5th company of that battle group, and that consisted of a lot more patrolling. We occupied outposts for different lengths of time. We occupied a school. It was almost like a school outpost for a bit, and just basically taking over that area and letting them know we're there. We got shot at a few times there, but not much. We also had outposts outside of the forward operating base, and we occupied those for could be a couple weeks at a time. But I enjoyed those. It was just a section's worth of guys, so about 10 guys with a light armored vehicle in a little outpost, and there was Afghan army in an outpost just down from us too. So it's like your close-knit group in a small little area doing what you're basically trained to do, and one part of it too is I think for everybody is you're away from the command structure of the base. So you're kind of left alone to do your thing without being bothered. Plus, it's just you get a good look at the countryside there too. The town that was in front of the base, I think it was called Bazari Panjwai or something. But yeah, I liked being there. We we lived in a village for, it was supposed to be close to a week, but it ended up being about a month. It was Nakane, I think, Nakahone, I think it was. That was where my company took most of its casualties. But we had to be there because that's where it was all happening. So we lived in like a would have been a family compound, I think it was, for that entire time. There was outposts there as well. We occupied during the days and nights, but that was a nice hot summer there. That was July. A good spot to occupy on the outer edge of the village. It had walls, like it was like a compound, like a walled courtyard sort of thing, and then it had the mud hut, basically we call them. It's like a small shack, but it's all made of sun-dried mud, and that's where we would store our things and sleep, and we would operate out of there. There was a couple of them we had our whole company, about half our company in this little place, and that was where we had one killed from our company, and that's where it happened, in that village. They hid an IED in the wall. I think it was a directional charge. It was a shaped charge, and that went off when it was our reserve platoon, actually, from Newfoundland, Nova Scotia, and it got him. And he didn't die there. He died in Germany, I think it was. But I don't remember who all else was there. But that was our KIA, our one. We had about, I don't remember, close to 10 or so other casualties, just like wounds. There was a suicide bomber in that same village after that, I think it was. And yeah, like the placed in waiting ones. After that, we bulldozed all the walls. So any loose, like any walls that were not attached to anything, were just gone. We had to do near constant patrolling every day, all day and night. And I think that was actually a time where we got hung up and we couldn't patrol. And I don't know what happened. It wasn't my platoon doing it at the time. And then that's when they got that lull to place that IED. As far as I remember anyways. But yeah, that happened after we moved out of that village. And we went to a different compound, and I forget where the heck that even was. It's out in the middle of nowhere somewhere, but it wasn't there. I think the funniest one was where, like, the kids and families there are poor. We'd sometimes give them some things, but then the one day we watched as the kid just laid the stuff on the ground and burnt it with the pack of matches that are in the rations for some reason. So we stopped doing that for a bit. Even at our outpost, like we had a garbage pit just outside the wall that was one of those ones that's like is constantly smoldering, and you just whip your stuff in it, and the kids would sometimes grab stuff out of there. The one time they did it wasn't garbage. He was running away with a garbage bag that was on smoldering. There's a hole in it with toilet paper coming out of it. So we had a good laugh at that. A lot more when we were with the reconstruction team. Because we were in the big city there, we were in Kandahar City, and all around it. So, like we even had a good one. We had a vehicle breakdown right outside the main gate. So there's a lot of people there. There's a market right outside the main gate. Generally, they were all right. Like it had been how many years since we've been there? Like it was 2010, so we'd been there a while, and that camp was right in a big part of town. So it was an old fruit cannery, I think it was. But yeah, for the most part, they knew what to do. You're friendly with them, they don't mind you. So Always tried to be friendly with them anyways. Never really had to be like very forceful or authoritative with them. It was mainly the Afghan cops you had to watch out for, so they just want to do their own thing, right? So, yeah. Even in the country, like we would run into them every now and then in the country if we were, especially if on our patrols, we would often do rolling checkpoints, and then we check the cars real quickly when they're coming through, or the people, just to make sure, like, to keep them away from where we were. Like, if we were talking to a local like the elders and that, if we were talking to them or doing something else, we keep them away from us, or like, or we check them to make sure they didn't have anything on them. Most of the time, you could tell anyways, because they wear, it's like clothing made out of like a linen, and you can see it right against them. So you're like, oh yeah, you're good. They're usually pretty good about it though. There was a truck one day that I think it was either police or army markings on the truck, and it had a certain weapon system on the back of it. Like, they all did, but like, we did a quick glance and look, and nothing happened. Nothing was out of ordinary, so we let it go by. And then we would have intelligence briefings every morning before we went out. And that next morning, they're like, "We're looking for. There's this truck with this certain weapon system on it." I'm like, "I think I saw that one." It's already gone. Yeah. So yeah, it wasn't much else for that. Like, our main experiences were a lot of patrolling and a lot of occupying outposts. Well, it got off to a delayed start. That was the year that there was that volcano in Iceland that erupted, and I was all set to go, and I was in Petawawa, I think, because the unit I was out deployed with was in Gagetown, New Brunswick, so I was out there from all my training. But we moved to Petawawa as like a staging area before we went to Trenton to get on a plane. But before we were going to Trenton, they're like, "Okay, yeah, planes are delayed." So I had like an extra 3 or 4 days, so I had to go back home. So I went back home. I had to get a bus ticket to get back home, so that took a bit. But after that, like, we got to Trenton. There's a town called Tweed, just outside Trenton. They seem to take all the buses through there, and they have like a going away party sort of thing for you, like just the citizens coming out and basically waving you off. And took a Air Force plane into Dubai, or the camp near Dubai, and from there it wasn't long before we took a I remember if it was a Hercules or something. We took another plane into Kandahar Airfield, but we got it like a day or two later, so it didn't take long getting there. And then from there we staged there. Then we moved out to got driven to Kandahar City to our camp. A lot of my platoon was already there, like half or so of my platoon was already there, so I just met up with some people and they convoyed us to the camp, and there we go. Like, Jesus is hot, like the smell, the heat. The heat is a lot different from Dubai. Like, Dubai is humid nonstop, and then Afghanistan is just heat. So at least you can get used to it. I did, anyways. But the nights are very cold. They can be. I know there were some nights I would have to be wearing my fleece sweater, my toque, my outer jacket to stay warm if I was on sentry duty at night. So yeah, it was one extreme to the other some days, especially after you got into the summer months and into the fall. We went from Kandahar right to Cyprus because that was when Dubai kicked us out, and we were there for 3 days of what they call decompression. Just to relax. I didn't. What they do is there is the first day, or the first 2 days, you have to go to these like almost like a seminar sort of thing or classes. Basically, it's hard to explain. Trying to wind you down, I guess, because you just got out and then you're thrown into like a nice place to live for a while, right? It's on the Mediterranean. But then the afternoons and evenings were to yourself. Like you're in a hotel, and then you can go out and about. There was activities you could sign up for. I know all of us went go-karting the first day, and the next day I went. I rented a jet ski and drove down the coast a couple times back and forth. And we had a third day just all to ourselves, so it was nice. Like we didn't really think about if we needed it or not. I don't think it was like it's like a party time, I guess, for most people. We would have a beer call. I call it once a month, and you could get a couple cans of beer to yourself, and then they'd have that with dinner or something that day. The Americans were dry, so the Americans at our camp didn't like that. I missed Canada Day because I was quick reaction force that day, so of course you can't drink. But 4th of July, we had an extra one, so we got another beer call, and they would have that under armed guard there. They weren't messing around. After that, though, we were dry because we went to the battle group, and we were out. When you're out down in the south in the middle of all that, yeah, they're not gonna even bother with that for one, I don't think. But yeah, locals aren't that big on it either in those countries, right? So we try and be mindful of those things. I don't really know what to comment on them except to say that I know they're there. A friend of mine, he was on the same tour I was. He was just in a different. He had a different job. I think he was at the Kandahar airfield. He came home and he was fine for a bit, but then we noticed he was drinking a lot. He wasn't sleeping. He didn't have any like acting out like in those certain ways that I knew about. And then after a while, though, he got a grip on it. He stopped drinking altogether, so that was all right. No one else that I know of had something like that. I knew guys that were wounded, but I don't know of any stress injuries like that. I haven't kept much in contact with those guys in the last while, but I know like they were in IED blasts and stuff, so there could be obviously something there. It's still noted of me that I look around. I don't like being in crowds, like crowd spaces, especially with like if you're stuffed in somewhere waiting for something or like a concert or yeah. I can kind of stand it, but I don't like it. Other than that, not much. Like everyone had to see a social worker when you got back. Like there's a checklist that you have to do once you get back, and one of them is you have to see the base social worker, and then they basically sign off on you, saying if you're good to go or if you need to have a bit more meetings, something like that. So he said I was good to go. I never heard from him again, so it must be all right. Dad, he's a bit better with these things. He was in the Army. He's a veteran. He served, so he knows what to do. I told him things, and then he would tell Mom things. So I didn't tell her everything I was doing. Same with like I'm not with her now, but my ex at the time, I didn't I didn't say everything like of where I was. Like they knew I was in Canada City for a bit, but didn't know I was in Panjway until after I left. No, like we weren't supposed to do things like when we were moving or something like that, or that all goes back to operational security. You don't want to say where you're moving to or something because it's the internet, right? People are on the internet and people can look at it. But mainly the worrying thing, because you know, where did all stuff happen in that better part of a decade? It was down in the south, so it was probably a little better that way. Because I'm pretty sure Dad didn't tell Mom that until after I was gone. I know, like I know I missed home, but after a while you get into it, you just do what you're doing, and I'd be better with it now, I think, than I was. But yeah, most of our guys in my platoon really were 20s. The section commanders and that they'd be in their 30s, and then it would go up from there in the ranks usually, like how old you were. But I think that was be typical of a regular force platoon. I was paired with a corporal from Toronto, and we were shipped to Gagetown to be with this regular force company. So there was, I think each platoon had a couple guys that were reservists, and then each platoon had our platoon had a section that was just all reservists, I think it was. Or was it a company that had a whole platoon? I don't remember which, but there wasn't that many reservists, and most of them were from out that way, like Newfoundland, Nova Scotia. They're usually pretty good. Like there's always this I don't know how you call it. The regular force always seems to think that the reserve force just sits around and doesn't do anything. I'm just like, I have to work for them. I have to go to work every day to get paid. So like, we would always say, like, how many days in the regular force you just sit around getting paid. Like when you're working, right? Like you could be out on exercise for weeks on end. Like we went to California for like what was it, a month or 2 months, something like that, almost. It was a while. And but yeah, like in reserves, you have to show up and do stuff to get paid every day. So that's what was my main income for several years. So I had to actually go to work. But they're usually pretty good, and once you start working together, it's a lot easier, and you're part of the group. Yeah. But there's always those certain little things that they try and poke you at. But the guys from this area, especially from just the Owen Sound company that went, like we all said, hey, we want to go. We didn't get asked. I think you get to use all the fancy stuff that you get over there, and I don't know, like I might have acted differently doing certain things. Like I know different things now than I didn't then, and I think just maybe acted a different way doing certain things. But it's hard to be specific when I'm not doing it. But not much. I don't. Well, I'm glad I did it when I was younger, anyways, because it'd be a little harder to do now with like family and jobs and stuff. Like, because I've been at this other job for a while now, and I don't want to give it up. And I know there's workarounds for that some places, but it's just it's harder to do now. Just I don't know about a dress, but to point out, like, I think for the most part, for our guys that were there, like Canadians, we were happy to be there. I don't mean like happy, but we were glad to be there and doing our job. Um, I don't recall ever having a day where it's like, man, I just don't want to be here or something like that, right? We didn't really have much of that. Like we didn't have particularly hard tour. Like we had certain things, but we were luckier than other ones, that's for sure, compared to what happened to them and everything. But yeah, like we came close one day, but it was they took out one of our lavs. That's how I know a couple guys that were injured in an IED blast, because they were coming to relieve us at our outpost outside the forward base, and there's this single spot where we couldn't have physical eyes on, and they put an IED there. So like no one was killed, thankfully, in that, but the driver was fine. I don't know how, because usually the driver that gets it. The crew commander and the gunner, like broken backs, I think a neck maybe, something like that. There's two guys in the back that were flown out, or they flew out because of the blast, but they were fairly well off. That's what you want, anyways, in those situations. But yeah, he was actually the one guy that was in the back. That I knew, he was a reservist actually from Sudbury, and he was in the crew compartment, like the troop compartment in the back when it happened. So that was it was a long day that day. But you certainly got to see how fast medical care could be, because we had the blast. We called it in because it wasn't that far away. We called it in, and we had the quick reaction force out there. Shortly after that, there was a couple Canadian helicopters and an American gunship flying around. And within about 40 minutes, I think it was, we had medevac from Kandahar there and gone, and pretty much back there in about 40 minutes. So that's pretty good for being way down south. So you got to see what it can actually do. I don't know, it's hard to say right now, because especially with no news coming out of that country anymore. I don't know, like, I know we did good there at the time. We just look at all the girls that were going to school. I don't know, it's hard to say. Like, I would hope that they're like our good deeds there are recognized. That's all I can really say. And that well, I don't think anyone's going to forget anything from there for a while, especially with all the young guys that are still around. But that certainly helps, anyways. Yeah, I don't know what else to say about that yet, but certainly something to think about, anyways. We had to. That was a lot of our job. A lot of it too was taking the engineers out, and the one we had an American IED, like explosive ordnance guy with us. He got a lot of work out of us, so we went a lot of places with him around the city and that. So yeah, I walked down a lot of roads with IED Alley. That was the one road. that was the one road we walked down, and I had they call it a PCM, portable countermeasures. It's a backpack that produces heat, and it's heavy. It's just for radio controlled stuff. So it jams. It's like a signal jammer, really. All our vehicles had them, but this is just a portable one you could take on a patrol with you. And we walked down that road, and we got back, and I said, "Here, take this frickin' thing," because it's heavy, and I got my own stuff to carry. And then they're like, "I don't think it was working right." Like, thanks. That's why all our vehicles, the Americans, I don't think had them in every vehicle, so they would have to position theirs certain ways so they would cover each other. But ours, everything had them. Yeah. I know we had some guy. There was some guy tried to set one off on, I think it was one of our sister platoons, and they got rid of him pretty quick. So yeah, he didn't quite last very long. But yeah, there's a few other funny stuff, but it's just section-based things, and yeah, like and at our forward base every week for a bit, we try to have a barbecue and just keep spirits up and do stuff, and like that or steak or whatever they could get, really, right? Like, I don't know. I think they had Don Cherry there after I left. He flew into the country, and I don't remember where he was. We had the Governor General come visit us. We were at the forward base. He came for, I don't remember what he was doing. He was just doing a tour, right? Saw him there for a bit, and even the minister and the chief of defense staff came to Kandahar and saw us. So it's nice that they're out and doing stuff. So.